Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on YouTube today. We're going to be painting a wet into wet of some pine trees. On heavy paper. So it'll be interesting to see how it reacts. So here's my piece of paper. Here's my mat. I flipped it over and I drew a line around so that I would know where I was going to paint. This is my mat. Here's a sample painting that I did. And here are the two pictures I pulled off the internet of wet into wet pine trees that I'll be painting this painting from. So wet into wet, the first thing is to wet the paper. I'm just using water, going right over my pencil mark. When you have a graphite mark on your paper, you can lift it up before you wet it or paint over it with an eraser. You can get it pretty much gone. But once you paint over it, the graphite mark is a permanent part of your painting. So that's all wet. And there's not really a sky color on this. I'm just going to go in and start kind of putting in some really soft trees in the back. What I'm going to do is make my favorite green. Oh, you can't see my palette. Let me scooch everything over a little bit. There you can see everything now. So I'm going to take, this is Winsor Newton burnt sienna. And I'm going to add Antwerp blue to it. If you don't get this nice green, it may be because your burnt sienna is not Winsor Newton burnt sienna. It has to be Winsor Newton burnt sienna. And then the Antwerp. And there's the green that I love. So if you get it too brown, add more blue. If you get it too blue, add more brown until you just get the shade that you want. Okay, so this is very charged, or I have a lot of paint in my brush. My paper's wet though, so as soon as I touch it, it's going to blossom out. And I'm going to start right about here, not right in the center, so that the highest point's not right in the center, but just off the center of that oval. I'm just touching it. You can see how much it's blossoming. I'm going to have it go soft out that way. And now I'm going to rinse out my brush and I'm just going to soften the bottom of this so that it kind of goes to nothing. So boy, this heavy paper really granulates. I can see it now. I practiced on something that wasn't heavy because I don't have another piece of this paper. So that's the first step, and it's very wet right now, and I like how all those trees went very, very soft. That's one solid color right now, which is, I don't mind because it's in the way back. I can just leave it that one color. But if you have, say, a red mat or brown mat, maybe you could just take a little bit of the burnt sienna and add just a few little spots, not all the same distance apart, but just add a little bit of color into that so that it changes ever so lightly. So it's not just the same color. And now I am sitting patiently while this dries a little bit. But I don't really want to hit it with the blow dryer. I just want to let it dry a little bit. I'm tapping with a clean Viva paper towel. This will actually dry it a lot. Yeah.
Trouble. I can't get your.
So this has dried a little bit, and I've also sort of dried it with this little paper towel. And I'm going to try and put another layer in. So I've got my dark green in my brush, touch my paper towel. Now this set of trees, I'm going to start it right in here. And it's going to be not as high as those ones in the background. And I'm going to see how my paper reacts. Oh, it's blurring. It's getting very blurry. Very blurry too. So then I'm just going to soften that. Rinse out my brush and soften it coming down. So this layer looks closer to me than the back layer. But there was still a lot of moisture in this paper, so and I'm gonna add a little bit of permanent violet bluish into this. Just a few little spots, so it's not totally solid. I'm not really painting trees. With my brush, what I'm doing is I'm just touching the paper, and because it's so wet, it just goes bloop, and it makes its own trees. And then I take just a thirsty, clean brush. I rinsed out my brush and dried it. And I can just soften the bottom of this. And this is all wet into wet techniques that I'm doing right now. I'm going to try to just kind of lock the bottom of this right layer of trees to make it sort of look foggy in there. Yeah, I like that look. Nothing too even. It's got to be nothing exactly the same distance apart. Everything has to be different distances. I'm waiting patiently, thinking this is going to dry a little bit, because my next layer that I want to put in is right in here over the top of these. The next place I'm going to work is right in here. I'm going to put in a layer of trees right in over the top of this that come down a little bit. And then my last step will be a little stand of trees right in here. So my next one is this. So I'm going to do 4 layers, and I'm on layer 3. I'm going to start with the same green, but I'm going to put a little more violet into it. Let's see what it does for me. That's kind of ugly. Try some. Oh, I don't know about that either. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to put a little bit of green blue into this and jazz it up just a bit. Colors get brighter as they come closer to the viewer. So I have my green that I love, which is burnt sienna and Antwerp blue. And then I put a little bit of green blue into it, or any pigment with a little bit of PG7 will work. And I'm going to try and paint in a layer of trees right in here. So I'm going to touch it and see what it does. Oh, it stayed. It did not blur at all. So I just want to put my little top is just with my little point. And then I just put little branches to the sides. Making a tree shape with just the tip of my brush. And then I'll put another one a little lower. Just want that really tiny little, yeah, there we go. Just the tiniest little tip at the top, the tippy tip. And then they get wider coming down, but they don't get wider and wider and wider and wider. They kind of, once they get to a certain width, they sort of just stay the same coming down. Now I have two, and what my mind wants to do is just put another one exactly that same distance apart, but I have to overrule my mind and either move it out farther or put it almost over the top of it, or both. Maybe I'll try one out here. So the top's very thin, and then these little branches just okay. Now there I put one that was really close to that one. What I'm going to do now is just get water, and I'm going to soften the bottom of these trees. Maybe let that go all the way out to the edge there. And I just rinsed out my brush and dried it. So now I have an even less paint. I can just soften those. Now that's all one color, and that's kind of boring, so I need to put something in there that changes the color. And I'm just having so much fun with this blue violet that I'm going to keep adding that in. Purple tree out there, or add some purples. If you have a blue mat, you can add some cerulean blue. You can add some pure Antwerp blue. That's always really nice to do. Some pure Antwerp. So as soon as you add a couple different colors, it really adds a lot to your painting. I'm going to put this one in now. So it's coming off of this. So see this little set of trees here, and it comes lower. That's what I'm going to add in right in this area. So go back into that same green. Over here. Now I'm going to just paint with some water, or a thirsty brush even, not even really water. And just kind of soften that coming down. Add a couple more colors to it.
Mary Kay, you're almost off of your oval, and I've only done about the top 1/3. How can I fill up the rest of the round?
Me too.
More and more layers. Put in 5 layers. So each layer coming down is a little darker. because if you look at this one here, you have that layer, you have this layer. Really, I guess there's really 3 layers here, but you can keep adding them up in. Just soften the bottom of the last layer, put another layer on top, soften the bottom of that one, put another layer on top of that, and you can just get it all the way down. Now, I don't have a signature in this painting, and I would like to have one. So I'm going to actually do it with the tip of my knife. This is a little bit damp, and I'm just going to scrape into it. MKS Jolly. And put the littlest amount of color over it and see what, oh, that was a lot of color, but that's okay. I get to. See if I feel like I've got enough. I put the mat on it and check it out. Oh, I got my mat wet. I hope it dries fine. I guess it's okay. I feel like there's a little path going up, and I guess there's enough interest. I feel like these trees here need to be just a little darker and just have a little more pop to them. So I think I can just do that with more paint. So I'm just going to try to beef them up. Maybe make them a little taller, a little brighter. I think I'm going to stop. That's better.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's see it, Dee. Oh, it's beautiful. Look at all those gorgeous colors. I like your layers. Every layer you have is farther back than the one in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
I
such
like
a
that.
teacher.
Thank you.
That's
I like
beautiful.
it in a little fold mat.
Thanks.
I finally figured out what.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's got a lot of color in it. So
Yeah.
it really looks like a forest, but it definitely has layers and it has fog and the tree shapes are really nice. And I like that it matches your mat. I like it. Good job.
Thank you.
Vicki, you next? Oh, with the red mat. Let's look at that.
Mhm.
I didn't put any red in it.
You still could, or you can leave it out because the green and the red are complementary colors, and so they work well together.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I like where your focal point is. You kept the front blurry, and then the focal point is in the mid-range, and that's a very clever way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, And I like it in the red matte, so I think you're done.
Okay.
Unless you can always add more red. And you can do it in clever ways too. I don't know what it is, but think of something. So fun to see everybody's paintings.
It is.
Laura, are you ready? I'm getting a cramp in my leg. Go away, cramp. Okay, good. All right. Penny, I've been keeping track, so I know you're next. Oh, look, it's
Very
so
nice.
pretty. Look at your
Yeah,
light greens in that.
that's pretty.
Yeah.
I like the purple.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
purple. Yeah, the purple in the front's beautiful. How did you make that light green, especially in the background? Did you put a little bit of bumblebee in it, or you're muted?
I have a little of sap green and my mat is very much sap green, so I added that
Ah,
in there on occasion so it would bring out the mat.
perfect. Well done. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Mary Kay.
bye everybody. Thank you.
Mhm.